What if the pain you're trying to escape is the very thing keeping you trapped? What if sadness, anger, or anxiety aren't just feelings that happen to you, but patterns you've learned to need? Most of us think emotions are reactions. Something happens, we feel something. Simple. But there's a hidden layer beneath that. A chemistry, a loop, a quiet addiction that runs so deep we mistake it for who we are. This is about emotional addiction and how the brain can become dependent on the very states we claim we want to escape. I had a friend once, someone I thought I knew well. We talked about everything: dreams, fears, the weight of existence. But beneath those conversations, there was a pattern I didn't see until it was too late. He lived in a loop. Every week, the same emotional rhythm. Hope, then disappointment, then anger, then numbness, and repeat. At first, I thought he was just going through a rough patch, but over time, I realized he wasn't trying to get out. He was recreating the same emotional state over and over. He would start projects with excitement, then sabotage them. He'd reach out to people, then push them away. He'd talk about change, then choose the familiar pain. One day he told me something that stuck with me. He said, "I don't know who I'd be without this feeling." At the time, I didn't understand. Now I do. He wasn't choosing sadness because he liked it. He was choosing it because it was known, because his brain had wired itself around that state, because without it, he felt like he'd disappear. That's emotional addiction, not a moral failure, not weakness, a neurological pattern. Your brain releases chemicals when you feel emotions, cortisol when you're stressed, adrenaline when you're anxious, dopamine when you anticipate relief. And if you experience the same emotional state repeatedly, your brain starts to expect it, to crave it, to feel incomplete without it. You become chemically dependent on your own suffering. Maybe you felt it too. That strange comfort in worry. The way anger feels powerful even when it's destructive. The way sadness feels like home even when you say you want to leave. Maybe you've noticed that when things start going well, you feel uneasy, like something's wrong, like you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. That's not pessimism, that's withdrawal. Your brain is so used to stress, to fear, to pain, that peace feels foreign, dangerous even. So you unconsciously recreate the familiar state. You pick a fight. You sabotage progress. You spiral into worry. Not because you want to suffer, but because your brain is trying to return to baseline. And baseline is suffering. This pattern starts early, often in childhood. If you grew up in chaos, your nervous system learned to expect chaos. If love came with conditions, you learned that safety requires performance. If emotions were ignored or punished, you learned to suppress, until suppression became its own addiction. Over time, these patterns become invisible. You don't choose them consciously. They run in the background like code. You think you're reacting to life, but you're replaying a script written years ago. My friend's story didn't end well, but it taught me something crucial. He wasn't broken. He was stuck in a loop his brain had learned to need. And the tragedy wasn't that he suffered, it was that he didn't know he could rewrite the pattern. I was stuck too. Different loop, same mechanism. For years, I lived in a cycle of emptiness and distraction. I'd feel the void, then numb it with work, with screens, with anything that kept me from sitting with myself. I told myself I was fine. I told myself everyone felt this way. But the truth was, I was addicted to avoidance. And avoidance had become its own emotional state, one my brain craved because it was predictable. Breaking the loop didn't start with motivation or willpower. It started with awareness. I had to notice the pattern, see it clearly without judgment. I had to ask, what am I getting from this feeling? What does this state give me that I'm afraid to lose? And the answer was uncomfortable. It gave me identity. It gave me a story. It gave me a reason not to risk change. The brain doesn't care if a pattern is healthy. It cares if it's familiar. So if you've spent years in anxiety, your brain will defend anxiety. If you've lived in anger, your brain will justify anger. If you've marinated in sadness, your brain will pull you back to sadness, even when you consciously want something different. This is why positive thinking doesn't work. You can't think your way out of a chemical dependency. You have to interrupt the loop, create new patterns, teach your brain that safety exists outside the old state. Start small. Notice when the familiar feeling arises. Don't fight it. Don't judge it. Just see it. Say to yourself, this is the pattern. This is the loop trying to run. Then choose one small action that breaks the script. A walk, a breath, a different thought, a moment of stillness. You're not trying to feel better. You're trying to feel different, because different is where change begins. Over time, those small interruptions add up. Your brain starts to learn there are other states, other baselines, other ways to exist. The craving for the old pattern weakens, not because you defeated it, but because you stopped feeding it. This isn't about becoming someone new. It's about becoming who you are beneath the loops, the version of you that exists when the pattern isn't running, the version that's been waiting quietly for permission to emerge. My friend couldn't see that version of himself. He believed the loop was him. But you don't have to make that mistake. You can see the pattern. You can name it. You can choose one small moment at a time to step outside it. Emotional addiction is real, but so is emotional freedom. And freedom doesn't come from escaping your feelings. It comes from understanding them, meeting them, and choosing not to let them run your life. If this resonates with you, if you see your own loops in this story, know that you're not alone and you're not broken. You're just wired for survival in a way that no longer serves you. And that wiring can change. Start noticing, start interrupting, start choosing, one moment at a time. If you found something true in this video, if you recognized yourself in these patterns, then you're exactly where I was when I started this journey. This channel exists for one reason: to map the way out of emotional loops that most people don't even know they're in. Every video here is a piece of that map. A pattern identified, a loop explained, a way forward. If you want to keep going, if you're ready to see the other invisible patterns running your life, subscribe. Because this isn't entertainment. This is a manual for people who are tired of living in cycles they didn't choose. Subscribe, and let's keep walking this path together.